Good morning, fourth graders. Welcome to our robotics class. This is week 24. So we've been going through now for, since before the break, pretty much every step in the engineering design process, right? So we've been working through, and why are we doing this? Because a big part of robotics is engineering, right? You have to actually know how to think about a problem, come up with a solution, design it, model it, test it, see if there's something going off, try it again, right? And this is really what roboticists do, right? They don't just say, hey, we're just going to make this robot, right? And it's just going to be perfect. And there's this first time they just build it and that's it. They need to come up with a design, right? So I'm really just trying to get you guys to see the full picture, right? As this is like your first year of really learning about robotics. And we haven't, it's been tricky for me, honestly, because normally we meet in person and there's a lot more like hands-on things that we do together as like a group. And I even have 2 Lego robots that I like to show to the kids. But so I've had to really adjust it a lot this year. But I thank you guys for being so flexible. And I hope that you guys have been learning a lot of these core foundational concepts that you really have to know because they're part of robotics, right? So these are things that are so important. And we are going to be moving into what I think you guys are gonna, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun. Is we're gonna be doing a lot of engineering challenges towards as we move into the later part of the school year. But before we actually do those challenges, I have to teach you guys about the actual engineering design process, which is why we've been going through this week. And I love those little videos that we've been using. I feel like they've been so helpful because instead of just having me sitting here talking and like we can't even have a discussion, I mean, it's through a video. I feel like the Crash Course kids, they just do a good job of adding a lot of animation and giving examples and bringing these concepts to light. So I hope you've been enjoying those videos. And today we're going to be looking at failures. So like I was telling you guys, failure is something that just comes along with when you work in the field of technology. I mean, a lot of the design behind robots and apps, you have these people and they come up with different solutions that they think might work and they test them all out. They come and they test their designs. And the thing is that when they're testing them, they're bound to fail, right? Because failure is just a part of the process. And it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, we'll never ever get this thing figured out. It just means that you are going to get it figured out because you're going through the process and you're able to see whenever you fail how to make it better and how to actually make it work. And your failures are leading you into your solution that will actually work, your design that actually works. So you need to change the way that you think. If you're somebody who just wants to get it perfect on the first try, you're going to have a hard time working with engineering and robotics because that's not going to happen on the first try, right? So kind of start to change the way that you think. And I feel like this is so helpful even in just learning with any subject, right? You're not just born and you know everything, right? And even when your teacher is teaching you things, it doesn't mean that you're just going to instantly be like, oh, yeah, okay, I know that. And you just get perfect, right? It's going to require practice. It's going to require failing and making mistakes and then going back and saying, oh yeah, now I understand, right? And it's part of the process. And there's a process to everything. So my hope is that for you guys, you're learning more about this engineering process and it's starting to really make sense that there's a lot that goes into designing robots and actually having them do the things that we want them to do or anything that engineers work on, right? So we have, I'm going to put on the video clips and then I just have a few questions. They're all just review, they're fill in the blanks. So if you're paying attention and maybe you're jotting down some notes, you should easily be able to fill in the blanks and answer these questions, and that's like your homework. And then my hope is that we can start moving into doing some of the hands-on challenges, which I think you guys will have a lot of fun with. But let me put on the video, so hang on one sec. Okay, so here's the first part.
Have you ever heard of the expression, if at first you don't succeed, try again? Well, now you have. And if you think about it, you can't try again without failing first. Engineers fail all the time when they're trying to find the best solution to a problem. In fact, failing is really important because it helps you figure out how to make a solution that does work. And to do that, engineers need to find their failed solution's failure point. So, what is a failure point? To answer that question, let's revisit some of the steps we've been using to design and test the possible solutions to a certain problem. We started by picking out a single variable, the angle of the ball ramp. Then we did several trials where we changed the angle of the ramp each time, and we had a few failures along the way. In our first trial, we knocked only some of the pins down. And in the second trial, we got no pins down at all. But on our third trial, we got the outcome that we wanted. Strike! And we decided that our solution was a success. Now, because we took the time to pick out one variable, we could be pretty sure that it had to do with why our first two trials failed. We figured out that when the angle of the ball ramp wasn't right, it sent the ball rolling right into the gutter. Now, in the bowling alley, our solution pretty much either worked or it didn't. But sometimes solutions to a problem work for a while, and then don't anymore. And this point, the point where a solution doesn't work anymore, is called a solution's failure point. To explore this idea, let's look at some different examples. Say you're out in the woods and you need to cross a stream. Fortunately, there is a solution handy, a small wooden bridge. You can take the bridge safely across the stream, right? Oh, but did I forget to mention that you're also driving a bulldozer? Now, that bridge might not work. At some point, too much weight will make the bridge collapse, and that specific amount of weight would be the bridge's failure point. It's the point where the solution wouldn't work anymore. It's a place where an engineer could say, here's why the bridge failed. Let's look into a pretty famous failure point involving another bridge. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge crosses a body of water called the Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. As you can see, the current bridge has two decks, one that goes in each direction. But that's not the original bridge. The original Tacoma Narrows Bridge opened in July of 1940, and it looks pretty good, right? It was a solution to the problem of getting people across Puget Sound. That is, until November of 1940. By then, the bridge had earned itself a nickname, Galloping Gertie, and it's easy to see why. Whoa! It turns out that the failure point of the original Tacoma Narrows Bridge was wind hitting it at a certain speed and angle. At this angle and speed, the bridge would twist back and forth. Eventually, it collapsed, though no one was hurt. Once engineers figured out that failure point, they designed and built a new bridge, one that could withstand winds like the one that made old Gertie gallop. And that bridge is still standing. Thanks to what engineers learned from the failure point of Galloping Gertie, suspension bridges are stronger and safer than ever. It's a success story that started out in a failure. So, sometimes solutions have a point where they don't work anymore. Engineers call these failure points, and engineers try to find them as they develop solutions for a problem. Really, they want to identify these points before the final solution is put in place. That saves lots of time and money, and sometimes lives. And sometimes failure points are pretty easy to find, and sometimes they're harder to figure out. But when engineers do find them, they learn from them to find even better solutions to a problem. You wonder how they do that exactly? That's another story for another time. Don't fail to meet me back here soon. Hey future engineers, I see you successfully made it back so we can learn more about why it's so important to fail when we're testing a solution to a problem. Last time we discovered that when a solution to a problem doesn't work anymore, it's called a failure point. But knowing the definition of a failure point isn't enough. Engineers have to be able to spot failure points and then try to fix their solution so those failure points won't be a problem anymore. So, we gotta ask, how do engineers find and fix failure points in a solution they're trying to develop? Well, for one thing, when they're testing a solution, engineers don't just jump in randomly. They make a plan. That is, an organized series of steps used to accomplish a goal, which, in this case, is a successful and safe solution. Now, at this point, you won't be too surprised to find out that this plan will include isolating a variable and then doing a series of trials or tests, changing that variable each time until you find a solution that works. That's what we did at the bowling alley, remember? We isolated the angle of the ball ramp as a variable and then changed it until we got a strike. Success! But engineers don't stop there. They try to find any and all possible failure points that might come up. So, to see how we can sniff out any possible failure points, let's go back to our little wooden bridge in the forest. Remember when we needed that bridge to cross a stream? We decided that the bridge could take us safely across the water, but not us and our bulldozer. But just guessing that the bridge can't support a bulldozer isn't good enough. Engineers would need to make a plan to test the bridge and see if they can find failure points first. One way that engineers test the solution in its early stages is to build a small model of it first. So, say we have the materials we need to make a model of a bridge. Once we're done building it, we need to plan to test whether our bridge can hold a certain amount of weight, or not. So let's keep track of how much weight the bridge holds as we pile weights on its deck. We'll keep adding weights until we find the amount of mass that makes the bridge collapse. And down it goes. Now, that amount of mass was less than our goal weight, which we need the model to support if the real-life bridge was to hold up our bulldozer. So guess what? We've just identified a failure point. We have a specific weight at which the bridge is no longer a good solution. But before we dump our bridge idea and start again from scratch, let's see what happens when we change the existing design. Let's build the bridge again and this time add some extra support. Now let's follow the same plan as before and keep adding weights to the model to see how it holds up. In this new trial, we see that the bridge holds our goal weight. In fact, the bridge holds even more than that. So far, it looks like our design could be a successful solution. But there are more possible failure points than not being able to support enough weight. Remember when we talked about the Tacoma Narrows Bridge? It was a perfectly fine solution to the problem of getting people across Puget Sound. At least, until the wind picked up and hit the bridge at a certain angle. Then the bridge became good old Galloping Gertie, twisting in the wind until it collapsed. So, in that case, the speed and angle of the wind made up the bridge's failure point. So even though we've determined that our bridge can carry enough mass, we should still pick out and test other variables and try to find other failure points to make sure we've built the safest bridge possible. So, let's review some of the steps that engineers go through when they're trying to find and fix failure points. To figure out whether a solution is successful, they make a plan, or an organized series of steps to accomplish our goal. And part of this plan includes isolating a variable, and then changing that one variable in a series of trials or tests. And once their solution fails one of those trials, they've found a failure point. So, if you actually plan to fail, then you're not really failing. You're making your solution better.
So what did you guys think? I know you can't answer me, but hopefully it was helping you to see why it's so important to really look at failures as an opportunity to really come up with the best solution, right? Because it's helping you to identify, well, like what went wrong here, right? I mean, I came up with a design and like how did this happen, right? And then it helps you to make an even better design, right? So it's kind of like the way you're looking at it is in the positive light. So just a few questions, they're just fill in the blanks. Failing is important because it helps you figure out how to make a blank that does work. A failure point is a place where a blank to a problem has a limit or blank work anymore. Engineers have to be able to spot failure points and then try to blank their solution. When trying to fix failure points, engineers don't just jump in randomly. They make a blank or an organized series of steps used to accomplish a goal. And then the last one says, share a time when you failed and made a plan to help you succeed. So think about even at school, like when was the time that you failed and then you were like, you know what, I think if I do this, this, and this, I think I'll be able to get it right. And what did you do? Or it could be something, personal, like that you tried at home or whatever. So you can share about that. And then you can send it to me. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for following along and, helping us make the most of robotics this year. It's not exactly the way that I envisioned, your first time with it going, but, we're all just making the best with the season that we're in now. And I'm just proud of you guys for that. You just keep on learning, right? And you don't let anything get in the way or stop you. So I'll see you guys next time. Okay. Bye, guys.